Strength can break mountains, but only wisdom can guide it. In this episode of Celestial Legends, Hercules begins his trials, not with reckless force, but with patience, restraint, and self-control. As the first labors test his power, Hercules learns that true strength is not how hard one strikes, but how carefully one chooses to act. This is Hercules and the 12 labors, strength tamed. The first labor awaited Hercules beyond the quiet fields, where fear had taken root and grown wild. Once he might have charged forward without thought, trusting only the force of his strength. But now he paused. He listened to the wind, studied the land, and considered the cost of reckless action. Strength, he was learning, was not meant to rush ahead. It was meant to be measured, guided, and used with care. The Nemean Lion had terrified the countryside for years, its hide said to be impenetrable, its roar enough to scatter brave men. Hercules felt his power stir, eager to strike, yet weapons shattered against the beast, teaching him his first lesson. Strength alone could fail. Setting aside sword and spear, Hercules relied instead on patience and presence. He faced the lion not with fury, but with resolve, meeting force with understanding. In the struggle that followed, Hercules learned to temper his movements, adjusting his grip, matching breath to breath. Victory did not come from overpowering the lion in blind rage, but from careful control. When the beast was finally subdued, Hercules did not celebrate. He stood quietly, aware that restraint, not destruction, had carried him through. For the first time, he understood that mastering strength meant mastering himself. The next challenge rose swiftly. The Hydra, a creature whose many heads multiplied with every reckless strike. Each time Hercules struck without thought, the danger grew worse. Frustration tempted him, but he resisted. Pausing, he observed the pattern, learning that force applied without wisdom only deepened the problem. Strength, he realized, must sometimes slow down, adapt, and wait, choosing precision over power. With care and patience, Hercules altered his approach. Where wild blows had failed, thoughtful action succeeded. Each movement became deliberate, each decision rooted in awareness rather than impulse. The Hydra was overcome not by excess strength, but by controlled effort and clarity of mind. Hercules felt a quiet shift within himself. His power was no longer a storm, it was becoming a steady current, directed and purposeful. By the time Hercules set out toward his next trial, something had changed. Strength still lived in his muscles, but it now answered to judgment and restraint. He no longer measured success by speed or force alone. Each labor was shaping him, refining power into discipline. The path of redemption was not teaching him how to be stronger, but how to be wiser with the strength he already held. As Hercules continued onward, the labors no longer felt like battles to be conquered, but lessons to be learned. Each challenge asked the same quiet question: how will you use your strength? He found himself slowing his steps, thinking before acting, letting instinct give way to intention. Strength, once loud and demanding, had grown quieter. And in that quiet, Hercules discovered space for judgment, patience, and care. The Golden Hind tested Hercules in a different way. Swift and sacred, it could not be captured by force without causing harm. Days turned into weeks as Hercules followed gently, refusing to rush or strike. He learned to move with the creature, rather than against it, respecting what he once might have tried to overpower. In this labor, strength was measured not by force, but by restraint sustained over time. There were moments when frustration pressed heavily against Hercules' resolve. Strength still surged within him, eager for release. Yet he remembered the lessons already earned. The lion subdued through control, the Hydra overcome through thought. Each time impatience stirred, he paused, breathing deeply, until his strength settled. Slowly, he learned that restraint was not weakness. It was strength held steady, ready to serve rather than dominate. Through these early trials, Hercules began to see himself differently. He was no longer defined by the power others feared or admired. Instead, he measured success by the care he took, the harm he avoided, and the balance he maintained. Strength became something to steward, not display. With every careful choice, Hercules felt redemption taking shape, not as a single moment, but as a practice renewed each day. When one labor ended, another awaited, each asking more than brute force could give. Hercules accepted this willingly. He understood now that discipline was not a limit placed upon strength, but a guide that allowed it to endure. The world did not tremble beneath his steps as it once had. Instead, the earth seemed steadier, as though recognizing a strength finally brought into harmony. And so Hercules continued, shaped by trials that refined rather than exalted him. Strength, once wild and unrestrained, had learned to listen. These labors were not stripping his power away, they were teaching him how to hold it wisely. For true strength is not proven in how fiercely it strikes, but in how carefully it is used. And Hercules was only beginning to understand its deeper purpose.